Hello, Pamela.
Hello. You're the only one I know who calls me that.
Well, it's because Sue's mother is called Pam, and I've often say, "Hello, Pamela." It's that one. Did your mother used to call it you when she was cross with you?
Hang on, I'm just going to shut the window to make sure I hear you properly. Right.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, Mother, yes.
Right, now, hello. Can I just say to you right away that we've got people online, writing online, and there are thousands of people are watching this as we speak now, and they're saying, oh, right. Oh, it's not Pam Ayres then, it's Pam Rhodes.
Do you know, that's happened to me so often. And when I actually queued up to see her, she came to Bedford near us.
Yes.
And I bought some of her books and did what we all do and queued up for books. And the man in front of me was so excited when he finally got to talk to her. And he said to her, do you know, the only other thing is I really, really would like to wish to meet Pam Rhodes one day. And Richard, my husband, standing beside me, tapped him on the shoulder and turned around and said, if you look round, you might have a surprise. And of course, there were shrieks of delight, including Pam, who joined in and said, oh, I'm always being asked to sing hymns. So we had fun with that. And then we walked away. And as we walked past the man who was behind us, he said, well, the Pam I've always wanted to meet is Pamela Anderson. And he turned around and looked behind him. Just, she wasn't there.
Yeah, well, that's another story, isn't it? That's... quite another page. That's. I mean, I'm just wondering whether you've got a poem that you can give us, just on the spot poem. But obviously not. Now, Pam, it's really lovely. And those of you, I can't know anybody really who's listening now who doesn't know who you are. And you've been on BBC television for how long now?
Well, over 30 years. And actually, they've just asked me to sign up for another 3 years. So I haven't been found out yet, Jonathan, after all this time.
Well, that's not bad, is it?
It's just lovely. It's Songs of Praise is a programme that's held in such affection. And I feel, in a way, I've grown up with a lot of our viewers. And it's just a lovely family to be part of. And although I'm a small part of it now, there's a new generation of presenters. I think whenever they need a white-haired interview, that's the one I get.
Yeah, you get the gravitas, what I would call the gravitas interview. No, it's true, isn't it? I mean, I think I used to always get asked, because if they wanted something serious, they never knew me as Jonathan Veira, the comedian, which is what I spent my life doing on the stage. It was always Jonathan Veira, the "how great thou art" moment. Oh yes, it's very serious. Do you remember though? When I phoned you earlier today, the moment I reflected, and we've had many moments over the years, but yeah. I remember the day where was it? Was it Lyon Park? Was it?
It was. I think we were doing a series for Lent,
yes.
Which were live on Sunday morning. So a bit hairy, no autocue or anything, but that's how I like it.
Yes.
And you were one of our guests, weren't you? In this very sort of, it was the place where they made the Mr. Darcy. When Colin Firth came out of the lake, that was the place.
That was the way.
Fortunately, we put some clothes on you, Jonathan.
I want to come out of the lake. I'm telling you, I'm coming out of that lake bare-chested, and people won't pay for that though. And what's interesting was that we did the whole set. And every week I'd go up for the Lent series, and I'd be doing my contribution in a song or whatever it would be. And that particular day, do you probably don't. You were sitting on the couch, and what you were doing was I'd do the song, and then I'd do the interview with you afterwards. So I'd come and walk across nonchalantly across to the couch, and then you'd say, and that was Jonathan Veira. Jonathan, tell us what's all that, whatever questions you had asking. And it was going out live in the days when it was live, wasn't it? That's how we did it.
It was, most definitely, yeah.
And in literally, I think I'd started, you are the one, this is my memory, who makes me happy when everything else turns to grey. Old Randy Edelman song. And that was the song I was singing. And suddenly, all the stage lights went out. Everything went out. And you could see me looking up at the camera thinking, everything's gone. We've lost the live feed. We've lost everything. And you mouthed to me and waved with your finger. You said, keep going, keep going. And
Stay cool and think of England.
Think of England. And I just kept going. It was in total darkness, so they couldn't see me at all. And
good job you don't need to sight read and you knew it all by heart then.
Thank the Lord. Anyway, those were back in the day. And Pam, we've been doing stuff together recently, and it's lovely. You're on Premiere now. You've got shows. You've got so many different things. You've got so many different parts to you. And I just want to just find out about that first, and then we're going to sing a song and come back and mine a little bit deeper and talk to you about Pam the woman, Pam the novelist. Yeah, okay, is that all right? Hold on, I'm going to do it lower. Pam the novelist. How about that? Is that? Yeah, no, you're ready to spill everything, aren't you?
I'm ready to listen to you sing.
Yeah, I know you are, but that's not what we're doing here. This is about you, I'm afraid. You are now also on Premier Radio. Tell us about what you're doing on there, Premier Christian Radio.
Well, since this lockdown, like quite a few of us, including you, I imagine, I suddenly found that we're busier than ever.
Yeah.
I have for some time done 2 hours on a Sunday morning on Premier, one a themed programme and another a request programme, always of hymns, very often the old hymns that have marked people's lives, and I love the stories behind why they were written and who wrote them. But suddenly in this lockdown, I realised that a lot of people were on their own, and that in a way we needed something to unite us all, and there's nothing like singing together to do that, as you know, more than anyone I can think of. Yeah. So I suggested that perhaps I might do a sort of 10-minute slot at some point in the day of just 3 sing-along hymns, well-known, familiar hymns, dearly loved, that you didn't even necessarily need a hymn book for. And I don't know quite how it went from that, sort of 10 minutes to suddenly being 45 minutes every day, Monday to Saturday. So suddenly that was 6 other programmes on top of the 2 I was already doing. And then on Sunday evening, another programme which is primarily an online television magazine programme, which goes out on radio but comes to life online. So we're trying to persuade people to actually, find it on the Premier Christian Radio Facebook page and find it on YouTube.
And what time does that go out? What time does that go out?
It goes out at 6 o'clock on a Sunday, but of course if you watch it online, you can watch it at any point. And it's a real sort of mix of what's happening in churches up and down the country. And of course, during the lockdown, there was incredible initiative and a real sort of outpouring of neighbourliness, which was often spearheaded by the churches, and lots of lovely, lovely, heartwarming stories about that. But then, the one that's gone out tonight has had the senior chaplain from MHA, Methodist Homes for the Ages, as they used to be called. And they are one of the biggest providers of residential care in the country, and therefore they've had a huge number of losses, just heartbreaking tragedy of staff being lost as well as patients. And so to hear that story, very, very moving.
These are moving times, aren't they? They're surprisingly moving. And actually, when you are being used as you are, to bring comfort to people, but with broadcasting, often broadcasting is a comfort to people. It's often at a point in Songs of Praise, it does bring comfort to people. Songs of Praise is one of those programs, isn't it, where people always say, I don't watch it. It's the most non-watched program that everybody watches.
Well, it's what the vicars always say, isn't it, Jonathan? They always say when they're taking a funeral, and perhaps the son or daughter will say, well, Mum never went to church, but she always watched Songs of Praise.
Yeah.
So, I think we have a different role to church. It's a complementary one. Yes. And it's the lovely thing over all the years I've been presenting it is that people will come up and talk to me as if we've known each other for years. And I think that's a great compliment. And I never mind if people come up and say hello. I always think it's lovely, because often they'll pour out, heartbreaking stories. And it's a real privilege that they feel they can. Yeah. And, one of the things that struck me over the years, and I've gathered that from Songs of Praise, but in particular from all my programmes on Premier, is that loneliness is a rife in this country. Yes. And especially in that older age group. Families aren't together the way they used to be, and you can become fearful of what's outside your door, and your world can become very, very small.
Very small.
And radio and television can unite people, and programs like this.
It's quite extraordinary how this has gone up we had 27.5k views in one program. And
Wow.
you just think, actually, online, normally you'd get a few, if online you get a few hundred, or maybe, if you were lucky, 1k views. And then suddenly things take off because of this. Look, we're going to sing a song and we're coming right back to you. Well, Pamela.
Hello, that was lovely. I remember all those words.
Do you remember those?
Yeah, I
Carole
do.
King, the Tapestry album. I played with them.
Absolutely. Haven't we all got that
Yeah.
in the cupboard somewhere?
Well, I said the other week, I played with the musicians who recorded that album just when I went to Nashville to record one of my own, the Nashville album, and it was so weird sitting in there, and they said we played this originally, and that is going back somewhat, if you see what I mean. But it's playing. Anyway, I want to get a bit further into you. You are more than a presenter. You've had a woman of many parts, as we said, and one of those parts is a writer. Tell us about that. How did you get into that?
Well, I suppose I've always been a writer in this. In a way, I've always been a journalist. I cut my TV teeth in newsrooms, and always knew that I loved writing and that I could always write to a deadline. But after I'd been on Songs of Praise for some time, I was approached by a publisher saying, would you like to write a behind-the-scenes book about Songs of Praise? And I thought about all those people that I've interviewed, incredibly moving interviews, very poignant times in people's lives, and realised that those stories weren't really mine to tell. And so I thought, well, maybe I could write it in a fictional form so that I could borrow some of those most moving and constructive sort of interviews, to give other people insight into what others have been through and what might help them by making it fictional. But I had no idea if I could write dialogue. No idea at all. Anyway, I had a go. I wrote my very first book. It was back in 1995, and it's called With Hearts and Hymns and Voices. Hence the name of my premiere program. And it was amazing because I'd have people coming up to me outside broadcasts for Songs of Praise asking me about these people as if they were real. And that led on to me being asked to write mainstream novels for a very big publisher then. I did 4 of those. And I suppose now I've written about 25 books.
Gosh!
Probably half of them or more are novels. But the rest of them are just all sorts of things I've been asked to write on, or that I feel passionate about. Like, I am a complete anorak about hymns.
Are
and
you?
In particular, I am.
Well, isn't that a coincidence then? Isn't that a coincidence that I asked you on here to talk about that then?
You see, I think that what connects people with hymns is humanity. It's because whether it was the psalmist writing those words 3,000 years ago, or Stuart Townend, or you with a song right now, it presumably depends on what's on your mind at the time. That morning when you get up, how you're feeling, if you're needing a bit of comfort or guidance or protection, that actually, because you're a wordsmith, you can pour out these lovely words. And when those words meet just the right piece of music, something happens. It becomes more than the sum of the individual parts. And I think that whenever we are feeling as they did when they wrote those words, there's something in those words that just stays with us and comforts us and encourages us and marks out our lives. And that, as you say, we remember them for certain episodes or times in our lives, times of sadness, times of celebration, or just that we feel great affection for them, the ones we learnt at school. Whenever I, on Hearts and Hymns, ask people to let me know what their Sunday school favourites are, I have loads of people writing in, I think hymns are a wonderful resource of great wisdom and experience that we lose at our peril. And of course there is the worry that we will lose them with the younger generation, perhaps not learning hymns in school as we all did.
No, and interesting because I made that very statement, and actually that was part of the reason for doing the Hymns Project 1 and 2 is that it's a long-term thing. And I've got a guy called Ralph Higson who has passed on to me. His mother was a reasonably well-known Methodist, and she kept all the Methodist hymn books. I don't know. I said this to you earlier. Did you know that Charles Wesley wrote 15 hymn books worth? Him and John wrote 15 hymn books worth of hymns. And when we're talking about hymns, we're talking about 1,000 in the first part of the book, with a supplement.
Well, and
of
also you have to
600.
think, don't you, about the circumstances in which she was writing, because very often he and John were on the road. They've travelled about 250,000 miles, and that would have been walking and
Ginormous,
horseback and carriages. And apparently he used to always carry a little pen and a card with him, and he'd suddenly get inspiration, because, of course, he was theologically so sound, wasn't he? He'd think of a line from a psalm or something, and then he'd write the most beautiful poetry. And probably whatever they sang it to, it would be just whatever was around at the time. But, you know, when you think of these great gatherings, what was the music? What were they all singing to? Did anybody know the melody? But now, of course, they have these wonderful melodies that we're so associating them with.
We've attached.
I hope he would approve of our partnering of the music and the words.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because we become attached to particular Love Divine or Love's Excelling. When you write them, you write new tunes for things like this. And I used to say to people, you do realise that each one of these hymns had 5 or 6 alternative tunes at least.
Yeah.
And people kept writing new tunes because they needed refreshing. They needed the pot to be refreshed. And Love Divine or Love's Excelling is a fairly modern tune, relatively speaking. And so we've become attached. And I remember one man, it was very funny. We were at the Westminster Central Hall, so the home of Methodists, and it asked me to do their Daffodil Day. You know, I'm sure you've done it.
Oh, yes, of course.
Right,
yes.
and so I was the special guest, and up we go. And they said, could you sing the hymns that you've written, the new hymns that you've written? And one of them was And Can It Be, which I might do tonight if I get the time. And I did it. And when you do step into the lion's den when you do Love Divine and Can It Be, and Oh for 1,000 Tongues to Sing. And those are a man, loads of people, they bought the album, buying the book, it's fantastic, they love it. Like, oh, great. Says, apart from one man who's an older guy, as he's going out and getting into the lift, I prefer the old ones.
But you know, there's room for the old and the new, because I
Exactly.
guess a lot of your listeners will think about The Lord's My Shepherd, Crimond, you know, that old familiar
Crimond.
melody sung at many a funeral, dearly loved, exactly. And we could never imagine, could we, that we love another melody as much. But look at Stuart Townsend's version now is probably more popular, isn't it? Yeah.
I mean, it just is. And now
Right.
people, the idea of singing The Lord's My Shepherd, apart from at funerals, I suppose, but even now that's being replaced. We recorded that exactly for that reason, that Stuart's version managed to capture, he adds a little bit and he manages to capture a more modern flavour of the 23rd Psalm. It does
Without
work.
losing the sentiment of the song.
Yeah.
at
Do
all.
you have any personal favourites?
Oh, now you're asking an anorak that.
I know.
I suppose the one that I really do love, because it stirs old memories for me. I grew up in a naval family. And so Eternal Father Strong to Save in all the various schools that I was based at, because when you're in a military family, you literally travel around from base to base and go abroad a couple of times and everything, and you end up in different schools with the same people that you've seen in different parts of the world. But the common denominator was always that Eternal Father Strong to Save meant a lot to us, because in my era there would have been quite a lot of youngsters standing alongside me in school assembly who had fathers who were in submarines and disappeared literally off the face of the earth for weeks on end.
Yes.
And yeah, when we sang these words, it had real meaning for us.
We could go on for days. However, I want to talk to you a little bit about another passion you have. You're passionate about hymns, you're passionate about broadcasting, you're passionate about writing. You're also passionate about you talked about the leprosy mission. Tell us a little bit about that before you have to go off and watch Pole Dark.
Yes, I'm vice president of the Leprosy Mission. I'm very, very proud to say. I've only been involved with them properly to this level for about 3 years.
Yes.
But I bet that, like me, many of us remember the Leprosy Mission from years of being at church, because they've been raising funds through churches for 140 years, part of that sort of missionary spirit of Victorian times, I suppose.
Yes.
But the shocking thing is that there's still 7 million people with leprosy in the world today.
Extraordinary, isn't it?
And the other shock is that just as in the stories we hear in the Bible, they were rejected and feared and said to be full of evil spirits and all of that superstitious stuff, it still exists today.
Yes.
And probably about 4 million people, we know where they are, 3 million are living in the shadows because there are still cases of children being locked in sheds rather than families owning up to them. Teenagers being set on fire because they wanted to kill them because they had leprosy. Terrible, heartrending stories. So I've been out to Nepal, to the hospital there, and also to Bangladesh earlier on this year, and to meet those communities, to see the miracles they work, to know that there's been a cure for leprosy for 30 years. They can stop leprosy dead. They can't, of course, undo the damage that's been done for the years of them not coming forward for medical treatment. And we have no vaccine or anything like that. But,
No.
at least we have the medication, and it just seems terrible to me that 2,000 years on we have a cure and people still are scared to come forward because of the stigma. So I just think I'm going to bang the trumpet. You know how everybody
bang
can
the drum.
contribute in different ways,
Do.
and I can shout and talk.
Do. And we will this week's whatever we get, we'll be giving 25% away. And if actually people would like to go, it's up on the screen now. The Leprosy Mission Just Give page. We've got that up, and we ask people again. Our people here have been extraordinary. We thank you out there for raising thousands of thousands. I think you know Lisa Ashton from the BBC, and Lisa, you know, we've been supporting her, and we will continue to do so. And so many charities and food banks that we've been giving over the weeks, thousands have gone to charity, and it's an extraordinary amount of giving that these people out there. Thank you for what you've done, and we thank you in advance for what you're going to give to Leprosy Mission. Look, I know that the time is gone. Look at this. You've hardly said hello and who are you? But Pam,
you're lovely. To share your company.
Thank you so much for coming on, and I know the listeners will be very, very pleased to have had you and to hear a little bit about you. They can go to your Facebook page. We've got that up as well if they want to buy some more books and things like that. And
just go to the web page. They just put in Google Pam Rhodes.
Pam Rhodes. Yeah, we've got that. We've got all that.
Yeah,
it's all up.
Lovely, thank you.
And we hope that we'll talk again soon about Premier. Okay.
All
okay.
Right. Love to you.
Thank you, my love.
Thank you.
God bless
Bye.
you. Bye bye. Bye bye.